Javier. Hi guys, thank you for staying so late. Everybody's excited about Angular 2, release candidate, I am, but this is going to be another talk about Angular 1. Sorry guys. So, let me introduce myself. I'm Fabrizio Fortunato, I work for Ryanair. You can find me on GitHub and Twitter, that's my username. I joined Ryanair last year in May 2015, and then on September we released a new website that is a single page application built on Angular. Now, I want to ask you guys a question. How many of you, can you raise your hand, how many of you read and follow Smashing Magazine? Nobody? Yes. Okay, didn't expect that. So you probably don't know what happened when we released the website. This was what happened. Smashing Magazine really made an article about performance, and for who doesn't know what this tool is a web page test. It's the standard for doing performance analysis on your web page. So what it does is takes a snapshot of your website, analyze different metrics, and gives you a good amount of information on how to improve also the performance. Now, can you see the document complete time was 28 seconds. It was really, really bad at the time. But I want to point out that it was a beta, and there was still a lot of work to be done there. Now, this talk is going to be what we learned from that, and now we achieve this one. 5 seconds. Oh, shit. 5 second point 6. It's really, really a huge improvement. So the talk is going to be divided into first half performance tips, where I analyze the core tools that Angular gives us and lazy loading, and the next part, the other part will be upgrading to Angular 2 because, well, it's release candidate, so we should start preparing it. So let's start with the core tools that Angular gives us. The first one is OneTime Binding. For understanding OneTime Binding, we need to understand how Angular expression works. Angular, for each expression on your template, will actually add a watchers. So in a way that when your model changes, also your template will change, will react to this. But, so, in Angular 1.3, the core team released the one-time binding. One-time binding are one-time expressions that will stop recalculating once they're stable, which happens after the first digest. That's taken from the documentation of Angular, the official documentation. But I'll need to add also when they're different from undefined. So when you should use one-time binding? Well, ask yourself these two questions. Does the template data will change? So do I need really a watcher in there? Or do I have a crazy amount of watcher on my page? How can I get it lower? One-time binding. And this is especially crucial for mobile devices, where if you have a huge amount of watchers on your page, what will happen is that the time to finish a digest for Angular, it will be really, really high as well. I want to show you guys how one-time binding made the difference for us. This is 2 screenshots of our sitemap. On the right side, you can see the first implementation. On the left side, the current one. Now, sitemap is probably one of the most complex part of the web app. You got planes that are, our planes have 189 seats. There are tons of business logic around it, like different seat pricing, different groups, different state of the seats, and so on and so forth. Now, the first implementation got this amount of watchers on the sitemap. With one-time binding, and you can see there's also more content on the second, on the current implementation. So with one-time binding, we managed to achieve 332 watchers. Next one is how do we use one-time binding? Well, it's pretty straightforward. just append the 2 semicolons at the start of your expression. But you're not limited to this expression. You can use it, for example, for ngrepeat, ngClass, ngIf, and ngShow. So always question yourself, does my data will ever change? Next one, track by, was introduced in Angular 1.2. Now, for talking about track by, we need to understand how ngrepeat internally works. ngrepeat, Angular will add an hash key to actually map your array. This hash key is generated through object identity. And what will happen is, for example, you're fetching new data from the server, but you got basically the same object plus a few more. Angular will not see the hash key on this new object. So what we'll do is we'll actually recalculate those ngrepeat for all your list. So you gain a quick performance boost just by introducing track by with your unique identifier. Or if you don't have an unique identifier, you can use $index, that is the index of the array. Coming up is filters. Now, usually you will use filters inside your template with the pipe syntax. That's okay. But you can start using it, filters, inside your controller. Why? Well, filters run twice per digest cycle. So this means that imagine a situation with a very huge list, you don't want to actually run those filters on those lists twice. Speaking of animation, animation is a really important part of the user experience. Do I need to show? Oh, okay. Animation is a really important part of the user experience, but you don't want animation to actually impact your web app. So, what Angular gives us for animation, the core library is ngAnimate. Probably everybody of you use it in the past or right now. How ngAnimate works is that it will add those classes like ngEnter, ngLeave, when an element enters or leaves the DOM, for example, on ngIf. But these classes are going to be added even if you're not performing any animation whatsoever on your elements. So what you can do? Well, you can use the $animate service and enable or disable it globally, or enable it or disable it per element, or even more, the one that I prefer and that we use in Ryanair, is use the $animate provider. And with this, only those elements that will match the specific regular expression will have animate working. The rest of the elements will not have all these classes getting added and removed. The following up are like quick wins that you should always do if you're not already doing it. So, global options, quick win, one-liner. You just, the first one is debugging for enable. Always switch it off on production. You don't need this on production. If you need to debug something on production, just use angular.reload with debug info and you got all the information that you want. On development, it's fine. It's actually pretty handy because by default, this is enabled by Angular. So on development, you got tools like Batarang, that goes into your app and inspect everything. But you don't need this in production. You can safely remove it. And the other one is use apply async. Now, how Angular works for HTTP request is after you got the response after any HTTP request, Angular is going to trigger an apply. So a root scope digest all the way to the bottom, from the top to the bottom. Now, if you have multiple HTTP requests at the same time, what you can do, just enabling use apply async true, a single apply at the end of it. Oops. Now, always stay updated with the version of Angular. This is taken from, this is a screenshot taken from a talk at the ngConf by Zachary Chappell. The talk name is Enhancing Performance Without Steroids. Go watch it, it's available on YouTube. It's really, really good, only 10 minutes. And what Zachary did was 20-page refresh within the same application but running Angular 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, and 1.5. And these are the results in seconds. So always keep updated with the Angular version. Why Angular 1.5 is so fast compared to Angular 1.2? Well, they made a performance boost regarding the $compile inside. And it's available to all the directives in Angular. What it does is that it will defer the compile only when it's needed for your directives. This is why it's called LazyNG. Plus, that's a plus. You got transclusion slot on Angular 1.5 that are really, really cool instead of the standard transclusions. That was it regarding the core tools. Now, lazy loading. Why is it important? Well, this is important for huge web apps, and I have no idea how many lines of code use Ryanair web app at the moment, but it's pretty big. And this is one of the tools that actually made the difference for us to arrive to the 5 second. It's important for big apps because imagine that you have multiple entry points on your app, or you have multiple flows, or you have nested states that probably your user will never reach. So why let the user download everything up front? You can just defer the download while they're visiting your web app. The only problem is that Angular by itself, it doesn't provide anything to do lazy loading. Angular 1, at least. Angular 2, you got it on the default. But Angular 1 doesn't have anything by default. So even though you got your way to organize the app into modules, you don't have a way to lazy load. That's why OC lazy load come in place. It's a free and open source library. You can find it on GitHub. That's the home page of that. How to use it? Well, it's very simple. You just include your library, like you do with all the other libraries in Angular, then inject the service or see lazy load, then in your controller you can lazy load your JavaScript file, your modules. But say for example, you're probably gonna use UI router. That's the most famous router anyway. So how to use it with it? It's pretty simple as well. Inside your resolve, you can lazy load directly. So you know for sure that modules is gonna load on that route. And you don't have to do anything. Lazy load is gonna do everything for you, all the wiring up for you. But what if, for example, you need to do cache busting? You want to hash your files before going to production. Well, just leverage Angular constants. You can have a gulp file, a gulp task or a run task, whatever you want, and that will generate a constant, and you just read from that. You don't need to do any crazy search and replace inside your code when you're deploying to production. Another thing that why OC lazy load is cool is that you're not limited to JavaScript files. You can also lazy load CSS with it. That was it regarding performance. Now, let's talk a little bit about upgrade. Well, at the ngConf, the Angular team announced that Angular 2 rendering time is 5 times faster than Angular 1. That's enough for me to say, okay, let's talk about the upgrade. Now, what you can do now to prepare for Angular 2. In Angular 1.5, the core team released let's say, a new way to actually call the directive. It's the component. They will actually mimic a little bit the behavior of the component in Angular 2. The syntax is a little bit different. You see, you don't have a function as a second argument. You just return an object. You don't have a scope anymore. You got the bindings. You don't need bind to controller and controller as, because by default it's going to be $CTRL. The only real difference between component and directive is that component is limited to isolated scope. So where it makes sense, just write it as a component. The new feature, write it as a component, and slowly refactor directive to components. The path to upgrade, well, at the moment there are two solutions around. First one is ng forward. Library, you're still using Angular 1, but you're going to write your code in a way that is similar to Angular 2. And so what does it mean is that you start refactoring everything with this new syntax, and then you switch the library under the hoping that the Angular team don't do any breaking changes in the meantime. The next one is ng upgrade. That's the official upgrade from the Angular team. How does it work is that you let coexist the two applications together. So they give you a way to actually communicate for letting communication happen between your Angular 1 app and your Angular 2 app. You can include directives from both sides and so on and so forth. The only downside of an ng upgrade is that you need to actually let the user download two frameworks at a time. Now, only the framework by itself, the Angular 2 framework, is at the moment is 40K gzipped. But at the ngconf, they said that they're gonna aim for 10K gzipped. That's a huge one. I honestly would recommend ng upgrade because you're getting something. If you can make space on your web page for actually Angular 2, for downloading Angular 2 for your user, you're getting something from the start. How can you prepare? Well, that's mostly, that mostly comes on what tools are you using. For example, in Ryanair at the moment, we don't have a module loader in place. We just use Gulp for packaging your app. So the first step for us would be to introduce a module loader, Webpack. We're thinking of Webpack at the moment. And from there, you can just identify part of your app that you can rewrite as Angular 2. Maybe do a spike or a POC on some parts. And slowly then, the new feature, build that in Angular 2 and slowly refactor the old code. What to follow? Well, Ryanair Labs, we are on Twitter. It's a new account. It's there's mainly, there's still nothing in there. But the plan is to give back to the community. And so please follow us because we're going to have probably other talks or other blog posts about the technology that we use. Regarding upgrade strategies, you can navigate through Angular.io, where you can find all documentation regarding upgrading. And for performance, I strongly recommend toddmotto.com. Todd Motto is really, really good at performance in Angular. His articles on the blogs and his presentation are fantastic. That's it. Thank you.